My name is Ingrid. I am an alcoholic.
Hi, Ingrid.
Hi, I've experienced with these steps as they're laid out in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with the help of 2 step study sponsors, meetings like this, a loving God, and I have begun my amends. I need to buckle down on those and live the latter steps to the best of my ability on a daily basis. Thank you so much, Joe, for asking me to speak. I haven't spoken in a while. I moved. Well, actually, now it's been almost 6 or 7 months, so I keep using that as an excuse not to get to regular meetings and not to speak. And I knew I needed to speak, especially this morning when the first thing I thought of this morning wasn't how grateful I am to be alive or how grateful I am to be sober. It's how can I get out of the meeting? I was thinking of what I was going to text to Joe to explain my situation, that I was just really sick, or that the roads were bad, but that's me. That's my default when I'm off of a spiritual plane. Even when I'm doing everything I should, those thoughts creep up. And thank God I have a program that I can come to and that I have a solution. Even if I can't come to a meeting, I know what to do. So I did not text Joe to say that I wasn't here. I got in my car and I drove the hour and whatever it takes for me to get here, and thought of some really great things in the car that I was going to say, and of course I forgot them all by now. I really thought about how grateful I was just to be able to be asked to speak somewhere. Before this program, nobody wanted to hang out with me. I had nothing to offer people. It would be like, oh shit, here she is again. It's like, I knew that the night, people saw me and they knew that the night would end with a story, or with not being able to find me, or me yelling at somebody at a bar, or me trying to do something. But today I can show up. My dad got sick right around the time I got diagnosed with cancer. And I was trying to get sober. I didn't really get sober. And long story short, he had to have a bone marrow transplant. And somehow, I don't know, I got elected to stay with him. He had to stay at a hotel right on the hospital campus, so that if anything happened, he would be rushed to the hospital. And I was put in charge of administering his IV. I must have had a little bit of program in me, or a little bit of sobriety, because I was put in charge of this. And I was administering his chemotherapy. It was like a 3-hour thing. I put it on and got ready, and it's administering. And I didn't go take a nap. I didn't sit with my poor father, who was just diagnosed with an incurable cancer. I went downstairs to the bar, and I got so shit-faced that I don't remember how my dad's IV got out of his arm to this day. That's who I was before this program. That's all I had to cope with the stuff of life. So the stuff doesn't go away, but we just learn how to cope differently, or we're given tools. We're not even told that we have to cope differently. We're just given tools. So that's the difference between now and today, really, in a nutshell, is that I show up today, whether I want to or not. And quite frankly, there is no other place I'd rather be right this second. And who would have ever thought that? I mean, I'm in the basement, or not the basement, but of a church. And before getting sober, I would never go into a church. So who knows? There are miracles, and I'm a miracle, and we're all miracles for being here today. I'll briefly qualify and then share my experience with the 5th step. I tried to figure out if I was an alcoholic, before I was born, if I was born an alcoholic, or if somehow I tried to figure it out right when I got sober. I thought if I could figure it out, I could fix it, because I'm the alcoholic and I'm like the fixer. It didn't matter, it turned out. But looking back, I had so many alcoholic tendencies before I even drank. I always felt uncomfortable in my own skin. I was so miserable and so discontent. I just couldn't figure out how everybody else seemed to live life. It's like everybody had the answers to life, and I didn't even have the questions. Like, I was just, how does everybody else get it? There was always this black energy in me that I just felt that I just was different than everybody. I felt that, if I could just get enough stuff, the right stuff with the right situation, everything would be fine. Just to fill that void. It was like a heart-shaped hole inside of me. And I tried. Before I drank, and while I drank, and even after I drank, before this work, and even still some days with this work, I try and, it would be men, and if I just date the right man, and if I just had the right car, and if I went on the right diet, and if I was the right, everything. And today I still do it when I'm not on a spiritual path. I'll go into Target, and if I can just get the right stuff, I can organize my house and I can be perfect. It doesn't work for me. But my whole life was just looking for that quick fix, and if I can just swallow that one pill, everybody will like me and I'll be fine. So instead, I was a chameleon, always changing to be okay, just to feel a little comfort in my skin. But the result was that if I had any sanity from those solutions, it was short-lived, and it didn't last long. And I was like, on to that next quick fix, because that guy didn't solve me, and that car didn't make me look as pretty, and it was just one more thing. So it was always this constant state of being good enough, and always just wanting to feel just okay. And it didn't work. School was miserable. I went to middle school, high school, all that stuff, and high school really was just a culmination of just awfulness. I would go around lunch period. It was the first time in my life that there was 3 lunch periods. So I had like one friend. So if that one friend wasn't in my lunch period, I would walk around the halls with my lunch bag, pretending that I was looking for something, and eat lunch in the bathroom, and just being miserable. And the whole story, there's one story that really sums up my high school experience, was that I loved basketball. I loved to play, and I loved being on a team, and I loved everything about the sport. So I tried out for the team, made the team, did well, and was on the team, but it was just so socially based, or that's how I saw it, because I'm just looking to be accepted, and I want to be part of a team. Everybody had these black Nike high-top shoes. I did not have these black high-top Nike shoes, and I wanted to fit in desperately. I had great shoes that my dad had bought at the start of the season, but I knew if I had these black Nike high-top shoes, I would be popular. There's one fix that was going to make me instantly, in the movies where like the nerd of the story has glasses on, they take off her glasses, and all of a sudden she's like ravishingly beautiful. That's what was going to happen with these shoes. So one Friday night, I did what I always did. I hung out with my dad, and we were at Leachmere sales, and I spotted them, I saw them, I honed in on them, and I saw them, the black high-top shoes. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get these? So I do what all good alcoholics do, and I wasn't drinking at the time, but I could have well been. I lied to my dad. I said, Dad, I need these shoes to play better basketball. And my dad, God love him, supportive man, but didn't know why. He asked me why I needed the shoes. Didn't I just buy you shoes? And I said, yeah, but these are the shoes. The other ones aren't comfortable. I need these. Everything will be fine. We debated about it. He bought me the shoes. Next time I had a game and he came to watch me, he saw me afterwards and he was like, I noticed that everybody else has those same shoes. Is that why you needed the shoes? And I said, no, I didn't even notice that. Like, are you serious? Come on. My dad's a lot of things, but he's not stupid. And so just that look in his face, I was disappointed with myself. But more than that, I admitted to myself those shoes were so uncomfortable, And I played the rest of the season in those shoes, and they were really uncomfortable, and they didn't get me what I wanted. Nobody talked to me differently. Nobody saw me differently. I didn't feel more comfortable in my skin. I still cried at night. I still did all the things I still wanted for all the stuff that I thought I needed to be a full human being. So we put those shoes away, and we didn't play basketball again because I thought it was too popularity-driven. And my big break was going to be in college. Now, I don't believe that everybody should go to college, and I don't believe that everybody who was meant to go to college should go to college right after high school. I was one of those people. I didn't belong in college. But I thought that if I just went to college, I could leave all of my old baggage with my parents in their little house, and I could just go and be free. Yeah, I know, you're laughing because it doesn't happen like that. But I went to school for one reason, and that was for popularity. I didn't want to cry myself to sleep at night anymore. I didn't want to walk the halls of a school looking for people, wishing I could sit with somebody. I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to feel okay in my skin. I didn't want it to hurt to breathe. I didn't want to always be looking at somebody else to find out how they can like me. I didn't want to have to crack that code every single day. So I decided to be, I'm an introvert, I don't mind being by myself, but I was gonna get to school and I was gonna be an extrovert. And I recently, or not so recently, ran into somebody that I went to school with, and she reminded me of the time when she first met me, and she was like, I couldn't believe you just walked right into my room and you introduced yourself and you were outgoing. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I remembered that. I remembered saying, okay, whoever you are, it didn't work. Just erase all that stuff and be the exact opposite of who you were. So it worked socially. For the first time in my life, I had friends. Or so I thought, but academically, I didn't do that well. I was asked to leave after the second semester. I was asked to leave first semester, and then I was on probation. And when I came back, in my mind, it wasn't like, oh, I have to study now. Now I really have to crack down on the books. It was like, I have to sleep with more men to like me. I have to get the one. I have to just look cool. Coming down from in the cafeteria, there was these long stairway. And on like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday mornings, people would look down and go, your friends would look and say, ooh, rough night. And that was a badge of honor for me, coming down those steps being like, holy shit, I'm one of the cool kids now. And that's kind of sad, is that in my hungover state, being in my sweatpants from the night before and just still probably being drunk and coming down and feeling like I arrived for the first time in my life. College was the first time that I drank, but again, I exhibited the signs of alcoholism long before I put the first drink in my body. But I remember the feeling I had when I had my first drink, and it was like, it was just that breath of fresh air that I could finally just be myself, and I was tall enough. I was, I wasn't too funny. I wasn't funny enough. I wasn't too tall. I wasn't too short. I had enough money. I had all that stuff. I had enough confidence. Nothing was out of place, and I didn't have to worry about that. And it was just like this soothing feeling. And so I chased that for a really long time. Eventually, the next semester, I was asked to leave permanently because I didn't know you had to really study, but. And so, so I thought that I was just stupid, and it wasn't a big deal that I left school. It was just part of my story, and I continued to drink, and I drink heavily and just chase men and friends, and whatever was going to get me to feel okay. Nothing ever got me to feel okay until I got into Big Book Step Study, but I didn't have any real highs during that time. For the years and years and years after that, all my friends or people who, my peers, I guess, because I didn't really have that many friends, people I wanted to be my friends, I would look at them, and they were achieving milestones. They would have their first real job. They would have their first house. They would have children. They would have, get married. And I would just be trotting along. Who wants to drink? It's Friday night. Come on, let's go. And I just survived. I had a DUI during that time, but that wasn't even a big deal. That didn't feel like that big of a deal. I was almost still proud of myself when that happened, because it's like, look how much I can drink. I can drink you under the table. And I drank so soon after I got that DUI. I didn't get caught again, but I definitely did drink again. And it was like that for years, and there was no real bottom. My parents are great people, and they do everything they can. They're the biggest enablers that I know of. So I would have been homeless many times, but they always bailed me out, and they always kept me safe. So I didn't have a bottom. My bottom was an emotional bottom. I got towards the end of my drinking career, and I knew I needed help. I needed something. My dog of like 15 years was dying. I was getting to the point at work where I was like, okay, I need to have rules before I go to work. I have to be showered. I have to eat breakfast. I have to have new clothing on, like fresh, clean clothing, and I have to definitely, brush my teeth and be showered and stuff. Pretty soon, that got down to like, honey, if you just get to work during the day, just get to work, I would go to work still drunk, still hungover, and it became so bad that I remember waking up one morning and I was like, I can't do this again. And I prayed to a God that I didn't believe in. My big thing was that I was an atheist or agnostic. I don't even know what I identified as at the time, but I was praying to something that I knew was there, but I just didn't know what it was. Got on my knees in this bathroom, and it was a pure point of desperation. I was like, please, I cannot do this anymore. And it wasn't just trying to get dressed for work that I couldn't do. It was the whole entire just existing thing. I didn't want to exist. I knew people that were thriving, and I just didn't get it why I couldn't thrive, that I was just existing. So I did what all good alcoholics do. I went on eHarmony, and I was going to go on online dating, and I was going to fix a man. A man wasn't going to fix me. I was going to fix a man. So I always looked for unavailable men. If they weren't married, then they were legally married or divorced. I don't know. But there's a long story of that. So I found a man, and long story short, he ended up in New Zealand. He wasn't in New Zealand the time that I found him. I poached him, but he was in New Zealand by the time we ended up talking. Oh, because I got kicked off eHarmony. Yeah, apparently, when one is so drunk, one should not call the number that a prospective date has given you. But I just wanted to let him know that I was a good catch. I wasn't. But during that time, all I wanted to do was just figure out how I can get him to like me. And that's so sad. I look back at my life, and it was just so sad. It was hollow. It was just, I would go tanning. I would buy the right clothes. I would think of what I was going to say to him before I said it to him, just to get him to like me. I would lie about my job to look more important than I was. I would replay things that I've said to him just to get him to like me. So he came here, we met. He had to be in town for work. We met. Oh, it was great. Week later, I went to California where he was living. Oh, it was great. Okay, everything was fine. So a couple weeks later, I decided, well, I was going to go meet him in New Zealand. And like a week into the trip, when I got there, I was asked to leave. I mean, really, the story is still debatable whether or not I did what I said was said would happen. It involved biting. I don't know, but my bottom was really on the plane ride going home, and I was crying. And I wasn't crying because I was leaving. I mean, that was part of it, but it was like I lost my power of choice. I didn't have the choice to decide to leave him long before that trip, or when I didn't think I was getting treated correctly. I didn't have the power to have a conversation with another human being. I didn't have the power to decide whether or not I wanted to go on eHarmony or go to rehab. It was just like that power of choice. It's, time and time again, I had seen other people being able to make choices in their life, and I knew that I was just being thrown by life and by continuously doing this cycle, and I wanted out. So I did something I had never done before, and when I met with my therapist, I told the truth, and that really saved my life. I didn't get sober right then, but I went to my second rehab, and through a process of trying, I did get sober. And I got sober in meetings that told me just don't drink, and they told me just to ask for help, and those were great meetings, and they saved my life. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't know what my higher power has planned for me, but I don't see myself living had I not walked into those AA meetings. But after a couple of years, I hit a plateau, and I said, if this is as good as my life gets, I'll kill myself. It wasn't even drinking anymore. I knew drinking wasn't the solution. I got enough from the people inside the meetings to see that drugs and alcohol no longer worked for me. I knew that. It was like, just kill me. I'll just commit suicide because that's going to be the easy way out, because I don't want this life. There's nothing here. I'm sober. Okay, I'm sleeping with far less men. My checkbook isn't bouncing, but really, what do I have to live? And it was right around that same time that I heard a woman speak, in a women's meeting, and it was in the basement of a church, and there was no windows, but there was sunlight radiating on her when she spoke, and she spoke about things that I had never heard of before in a way that I had never heard them being spoken about. And she talked about this sunlight of the Spirit. I was like, holy shit, I need some of whatever she has. I don't care what it is. But she spoke with such ease and comfort, and she spoke the truth, and she spoke appropriately. She didn't, what I was so drawn to was that she was talking about a solution. Because I was going to meetings where you'd hear about a solution when things were great, and I saw God in the park, in a tulip, and I saw God when I walked my dog to in the park, and that's great, and it helped me. But when shit hits the fan, those same people who were talking about God in a park and in a tulip didn't have a solution, and all of a sudden life was just shitty, and that didn't work for me. But this woman who had tremendous medical problems and who had a lot of stuff going on for her could still talk about a solution that worked for her. And to me, that was priceless. So I spoke to her afterwards, and we eventually did the work, and today she's still my sponsor. And stuff still happens to her, and she still has a solution. So I started going to these meetings, and forever I'll be grateful for this program. On the fifth step, my experience is as it's laid out in the book. My sponsor, I had done the fourth step. My sponsor was checking my work pretty much every couple of weeks or whenever I would do enough writing for her to look at. So I didn't have that fear anymore of reading my work to her. Had I read through this work before I decided to do the work, I don't think I would have ever wanted to do the work. Really, this stuff in my fourth step is the stuff I used to drink about. But I started working with a sponsor, and she heard all the stuff. She heard the bad, the ugly, the everything, and she still loved me. More importantly, she was showing me a relationship with my own higher power. It's something that I had never had before in my entire life. So I trusted her, and more importantly, I trusted a relationship that I had with a higher power. And that was a big, hard thing for me to do, because coming into the program, I didn't believe, I didn't want to believe, but she kept telling me that her purpose was just to show me to the version of my higher power. And that was so powerful, because she never told me who to pray to, what to pray to, how to do it. She just told me to do it. And that was powerful in that she showed me how to do something that I couldn't be shown how to do on my own. So when the fifth step time came around, we decided to do power sessions, like hours worth of me talking, and it was painful. It was painful. I thought, and that's where I first went into, that my experience was going to be like what the book says, and all of a sudden, well, the book doesn't say all of a sudden everything's going to be great, but my experience from other meetings is that people said, I drove home and I just felt light and breezy and airy. And I had heard after the third step, some people had a spiritual experience right there, and they, were on their knees with their sponsor. And my first sponsor, we were at Panera in Leominster, and I didn't get on the ground. There was no candle, so I was like, that's why I didn't have a spiritual experience on my third step. So I was like, the fifth step, this is going to happen. I was, my sponsor, I had heard that some people had an empty chair and lit a candle. My sponsor was like, if you want to do that, you can. It's not my experience to do it, but if you want to do it, I was like, no, we'll just make a little room on the couch. It'll be fine. And the first night of reading, I was so excited to read because I was going to get there, and I was going to finally arrive. So I started reading, and after a few minutes, I was so miserable. I was so sick of hearing my bullshit. Really, the same thing over and over and over and over, and the same pattern over and over and over again. I just wanted to be done reading, and oh my God, I just felt bad for my sponsor who was there, who just had to hear this stuff again, and over and over and over. So I just wanted to be over. And then finally, after a couple nights of reading, it was over. But my experience wasn't that I drove home and I felt lighter or freer. It was the first time in my life that I had ever finished anything that I had started. And finished is a wrong word, because are we ever really finished? But I felt good in accomplishing that, but I didn't have a spiritual experience, and I so desperately wanted one. And I mention that because each experience is different, and the program still works for me, even though I didn't have what I thought I should have at a certain moment. And I wanted it to look a certain way, and it didn't look a certain way. And my program works just as well as somebody who did have a spiritual experience during that moment. It looks different for everybody. So I went home and I did what everything what they said, and continue to work the steps to the best of my ability. Here reading this today, I haven't looked at this reading in a while, and the part that really that hits home is that when we're looking for somebody to hear our fifth step. We have to make sure that person says, make sure that he should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. And I am so grateful for this program, but sometimes I take it so for granted. Not only hearing our fifth step is a life and death errand, but I mean, the whole entire program is for me. I wake up and I think of a text to send Joe because I don't want to show up. Who am I to do that? It's not. I just love coming to meetings to be reminded that we're all on a death and life errand. There's people who I got sober with that aren't living now. There's people who I got sober with who aren't blessed like us to be sitting in a meeting, whether or not they're really paying attention or just texting or just not being present. They have the ability to sit down in the chair where so many of the people who have been here are no longer here. I need this meeting. I need people who are in this meeting to stay sober, because I can't take it for granted for a second. It's not guaranteed that I'll wake up tomorrow. It's not guaranteed that I won't drink tomorrow. It's not guaranteed that anything. And when I get in that mindset, like, I've been sober for X amount of years, please, that's when I need to do more work, because if I just keep it in the day, things seem right. Other than that, I don't know. I don't think there's much more on this step that I haven't already said, except for notes that I can't read anymore. But just thank you for being here, and thank you for asking me to speak. Thank you.